All right. Last but not least, here you have another heavy hitter based, after your last review, which was also a heavy hitter in a different
Really?
manner.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have something a little bit better for us this time, I believe.
Yeah. I watched World is Dancing. Um,
Wait, better than
Yes.
Ghost in the Shell? What are you talking about?
I didn't cover Ghost in the Shell last
No,
episode, bro.
yeah. Last,
You're talking
I'm
about heavy
comparing to last time.
hitters.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is a heavy
you talking
hitter.
about Go Hands? Hold on. Yeah,
Bro,
have you been catching up with Go Hands? It's
I
terrible.
I watched episode 3 and I kind of dropped that shit.
You like the recap that wasted so much time?
Yeah, it was great. It was really good. Really necessary stuff. Um, but yeah, I watched World is Dancing, also known as The World is Dancing. Um, this is a uh, Cypic production, which is the new, I guess, branding for Cygames Pictures. Um, so, so there's a decent amount of money behind this one. This is a sort of historical drama about dancing. Um, this takes
Sorry, can
place.
I apologize. Sidepick, is this their only series for the season? I forget. I mean,
I
obviously, that game usually does one, but it's like I'm just asking.
Yes. So I think this is their only like series this season. They did like just release um the Chikawa movie though. That was them, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's like yeah. But yeah, in terms of like
Okay.
anime like series, this is all they're doing this season. And then I think Kagurabachi is um like their next big thing. I don't know if they have anything
Okay.
in between, but yeah. Um so but yeah, this is a historical drama. It takes place in the 1300s, the uh, late 1300s, and it's about dancing and sort of the, I guess, I don't really want to like. It's not really like a because like the characters in this are like historical figures, and it does take a decent amount from history. It is kind of recounting like actual history. But it doesn't really present it that way. It is kind of just like, um, uh, it's just like, yeah, like these are the characters. So the basic story is our main character,
But it's
Oniyasha.
not. It's not. It's like in media res. So like, what's happening?
Um, kind of, yeah. It's like a historical, um, it's a historical story, but it doesn't present it as like a retelling of history or anything. It is kind of just like, yeah, by the way, this is the story. You know what I mean? And the
Historical
characters
fiction.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like, yeah, it just so happen to
Mm.
be figures from history. Yeah, the main character,
Okay.
Oniyasha, is the son of Kanami, who is the leader of a Sarugaku troop. Um, and if you don't know what Sarugaku is, it's essentially what No Theater was called before it became popular,
Mm.
basically. Um,
Mhm.
which is a pretty old, I guess, traditional form of Japanese dance that's basically like the act of telling story through dance, right? Um, and it's a very kind of slow, methodical uh, sort of dance. Um, and yeah, Oniyasha is a young lad. He's like 11 in this, and he doesn't really get the point of dancing. He doesn't really get why people dance. He doesn't really get like the what people enjoy about watching dancing. He doesn't really get why his father dances to begin with. Um, and his father is very strict and obviously wants him to be part of the troop, um, and basically forces him to dance, right? And so he kind of laments this up until he has sort of this chance encounter to witness this woman who's quite sick, sort of dancing, and he kind of, I guess, gets a spark of inspiration, and he sort of then goes on a kind of journey to discover what exactly that feeling he felt when he saw that really is, and what that means for, um, expressing himself and sort of, um, kind of appreciating uh, art in general, like art, whether it's witnessing it or expressing yourself through it, and the different forms that can take, right? And sort of what it is to kind of, um, they say this kind of line a lot in the initial episodes of like, um, different things sort of have different forms, and the form that you take is kind of the the thing you're meant to do, right? Um,
Mm.
and the initial kind of example is just like, birds have hollow bones, and therefore their form is to fly, and fish are, shaped in a certain way, and their form is to swim, right? Um, but humans, like a human form, it isn't really like a predefined function, right?
Mhm.
And every person kind of has their own form. And Oniyasha is kind of on sort of a introspective journey to discover his form, and then kind of witness what the forms of others kind of like mean to them. Um, and that's mostly explored through art, right, and largely dance, right. But the series explores a little bit of other stuff, like song, or just like playing an instrument, stuff like that, right. Um, but yeah, that seems to be like the main theme, is kind of just expressing yourself through art. Um, but yeah, the story's pretty interesting. Um, the I won't go into like the overall synopsis, but like, because there's only 4 episodes out, and most of it's pretty foundational. Um, but the main kind of, I guess, catapult is uh the the lady that he sort of takes inspiration from. Misfortune befalls upon her, partially through Oniyasha's own kind of like selfishness. His kind of young selfishness. Um, and he kind of feels uh, obviously regret and anger towards that, and he kind of um, makes a promise to sort of carry the mantle, right? And so that's where he kind of finds the motivation to really devote himself to the art of dancing, right? Um, and then from there, he sort of earns or catches the, I guess, fancy or the eye of the current like shogun, and then um, you know I would assume like the exploration of Sarugaku, and like how it becomes sort of the school known as No Theater, sort of develops from there. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's pretty solid. It's pretty dramatic with a mix of comedy. The balance is pretty good. Um,
The focus is mainly on sort of this coming of age story, though, right? Or is it like how much of like, oh, there are these external historical events that are trying to affect it? Obviously, it's not going to be like real, like exact real historical events, but what's the sort of balance there?
so far there's 4 episodes out. I've watched them all,
Hmm.
and so far there's really very little to do with like the historical events. Um,
Hmm.
it establishes very early on that obviously the late 1300s Japan, it's a pretty rough time to be Japanese.
To be alive, yeah.
Yeah, and um, people sort of are, like, a lot of people are really looking to kind of escape, right? Like kind of escape the harshness of the current situation, and a lot of people are kind of escaping that through art and dance performance, going to shows, going to
Mhm.
festivals, stuff like that. Um, but it doesn't really like
Go into
pinpoint like
detail.
specific like
Yeah.
events or anything like that. Like, oh, this war is happening, or this
Mm.
this specific leader is doing this kind of stuff. The Shogun, uh, um, Ashikage Yoshimitsu is like one of the like core characters. Like he is kind of like integral to the story. So it might go a little bit more into some historical political stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
but I think it will largely be like a character focused kind of thing. Which I
Okay.
think is good because like um this is a series about dancing. It doesn't really need um
Yeah, it's the general kind of thematic kind of.
yeah, yeah. Um
And is the series focused mainly on um Oniasa's introspections, retrospections from given some interactions with the cast, or is it kind of multi-perspective, like focused on a bunch of different characters as the series expands? What's
so
that?
it's
What's that?
it's predominantly focused on Oniyasha. There have been a couple um small kind of peeks into kind of other characters struggles and their kind of outlooks on the troupe and sort of art as well.
Mhm.
But it is like it's like 95% Oniyasha. I would say there's
Okay,
been
okay,
like
okay, okay.
maybe like two other scenes where it's like other characters. Like there's another character that ends up sort of getting in a fight with Oniyasha because he feels um, that Oniyasha like is not really pulling his weight within the troupe, even though like getting like these big roles, like being able to perform for the shogunate.
Mhm.
Even though he skips out on practice, he's a sort of immature, you know, like he's an 11-year-old boy, right? Like he doesn't really want to practice, um, and yet
Yeah.
he's still getting sort of these really important roles to perform. Whereas this other character, he practices every day, and yet he still feels like he's not good enough, and he hasn't really gotten his own opportunity to kind of show his stuff. And so he kind of gets in a spat with Oniyasha, and it gives sort of his perspective, but it's like a short, small kind of thing, and it is mostly used as
Mhm.
kind of like a moment for Oniyasha to kind of look back and be like, yeah, I kind of haven't been treating this very seriously at all, and maybe I
Yeah,
need to,
for him to change a catalyst, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Mhm.
um,
Okay.
but yeah, um,
How much dance trivia is there, or is it more focused on just like kind of the
there
feelings
is
and the
zero. There's zero. So that is
pain?
probably my biggest gripe with this series is
It's not just this, it's
um
like such a specific like era, form, style, like
yes,
tradition
yes.
too.
So it presents um so it's a very odd um dichotomy that this series has because it's using um predominantly what would become no theater, right, which is a very slow,
Mhm.
very off, kind of form focused, very, even like the minor movements of the wrist, because they're dancing with a fan and stuff like that. These very small movements are like really important, right? And it presents dance uh, when it decides to sort of present, dancing as this very, expressive, people dance just to, get their feelings out kind of thing. It presents that as a very sort of explosive, sort of emotional, frenetic kind of moment. Um, but no, like no theater is not that at all, right? So
Mhm.
it kind of runs into this clash, especially visually, where you have these, sort of dramatic, emotional, melodramatic moments, where Oniyasha is sort of discovering this, flash of inspiration, or he's dancing his heart out, and he's getting his, grief and anger out. And it's presented and it's animated in this way that's very, it's like abstract, and it's basically just like lines on a screen, right? And it's gorgeous, right? But then when it gets to Oniyasha's like dancing in front of the Shogun, and he's performing this super important dance, it's like it's this really slow, methodical, like you know um I really have to focus on my steps, and it's like it kind of is, I think, a bit of, it's a bit dissonant with the messaging, I think. um and they don't really, I really wish when they were doing his, rehearsal stuff, like the rehearsal scenes with his father, or the training stuff, I feel like they should have maybe dropped at least, a couple bits of trivia of like why, this form of dance is so technical, why these certain
Like
steps are so
why they're
important.
taking these, yeah, why
Yeah,
they're taking these exact actions, right? Because everything's deliberate.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
but that's kind of like my only complaint, right?
Hmm.
Is that sort of that slight disconnect. And maybe they'll get more into that as the series goes on. But so far there has been like no trivia at all, which kind of surprised me, especially because like this is taking place at a time period where like these characters, like Oniyasha and his father, are like they are the founders of like this pretty much entire like form of dance, right? It's a very like traditional um like Japanese kind of art form, right? So you would think there'd be a bit more uh you know trivia put onto it, like, hey, by the way, like this is why they're doing this and stuff like that. But maybe we'll see it. But um yeah. um
Hmm.
but yeah. um I think that's mostly it for the story. um it's pretty solid. I do like the characters. I like Oniyasha quite a bit. He's very um they make a point to sort of show his immaturity, but they don't make it like um they don't make him like petulant,
Point.
like a petulant
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
annoying, like bratty child. He is the son of a very strict father, right? And that kind of um shows, right, where he will kind of um rebel in a way to where like he wants to sort of be on his own, or he'll have
Hmm.
these moments of selfishness. um but they do a very good job of having Oniyasha learn from them, and learn from them very quickly, right? Where it's like as
Right.
soon as he does something and it ends up, either reflecting poorly on the troop or on his father, or it has, repercussions on himself, like as a person, he's kind of almost immediately like, man, I need to fix that. I need to never
Hmm.
do that shit ever again, right?
Hmm.
And not only do I need to not do it again, like I need to better myself as a person. So like something like that never happens ever again, right? Um,
Right.
so it's pretty good, like in that way. And the his father as well, Kanami, who they present him as extremely strict, right? Like, um, kind of like, um, imagine like almost to the point of like the sort of melodramatic depictions of like a parent that is putting their kid through like ballet dance, right? And like everything needs to be
Yeah, yeah.
perfect, right? He's kind of like that in the sense that um, he's very, you know, um, like strict, obviously with the training, but even
Mm.
outside of that, like he's very, um, he doesn't really show emotion, right?
Yeah,
But
he's
they
the
also
standard
make
like stoic dad kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. They
Yeah.
make a good, I think, um showing that like he's not just like that with Oniasha. Like it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, he's just like a fucking shit dad and he hates his kid. It's like, no, he's kind of
Mhm.
just like that with everybody, and sort of Oniasha being like I don't understand my father. It's not like a it's not like a unique experience to him. Like even other people in the troop are like, you know, like this guy is a fucking enigma. Like we don't really get like what drives him to this point, right? Um,
Yeah.
so he's an interesting character as well. Um, and the some of the supporting cast are pretty good. Um, there's not like there's like a lot of characters in this, as most of these like historical dramas have. But it's done in a way that where it's like you don't really need to know that much about them, right? They kind of just show
It's a
up and they're like,
continual casual rotating cast, and like they're mainly there to add value to
yeah,
what the main
yeah,
character is going through. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's pretty good, in that regard. I think the story is pretty solid. It's paced pretty well. Um, I think at least in these initial episodes, this is a 13 episode series, so pretty standard in that regard. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think the story is pretty solid.
Audio
Probably move on to
visuals.
the audiovisuals. Again, Cygames Pictures, Cypic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're
Been
pretty.
doing, been
They're
doing,
pretty.
yeah,
They're pretty good. Um,
yeah,
Oh
been
yeah,
doing pretty
near.
well recently.
But is it better than Cinderella Grey?
I'd I'd say the highs for this are definitely better than Cinderella Grey.
I don't know, man. Have you seen when the Kenji Kawai music kicks in?
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
good.
Um,
Also this is not related to the other running series.
no,
Why not?
I
Who'd
don't
win in a
know.
fight?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not
Uh,
Oniyasha because he's an 11-year-old boy. But
yeah.
yeah, the audio visuals are quite good here. Um, again, it's a dancing thing, and they do a pretty good job of showing kind of very fluid motions. I think there's been a couple scenes that I've noticed that are um very likely rotoscoped, uh, which is understandable, especially because when you're talking about dancing, and you're
Yeah.
like
These dancing series have
needing to
always was
animate
effects like that.
these big
Yeah.
sort of flowing uh, kimonos and stuff. It's pretty understandable that you rotoscope some of these shots. They're quite
Yeah.
fluid. Um, I think there's been like maybe one scene of dancing, like one cut that I've been like, that's a bit shoddy. But that's about it. Then there's the highlights for this, are definitely in. So in episode 1 and then episode 2, like I said, there's sort of these scenes where Oniyasha first sort of sees, um, his sort of inspiration, this woman dancing, and it's presented in this sort of almost like it's kind of like an ink on paper thing, but it's very messy. It's very abstract. It's very frenetic kind of thing. It's almost like um, it is very much like lines that resemble a human that are moving in this very fluid fashion. Um, and it's really good, right? It's very impressive stuff. And um, then there's another scene in episode 2, where Oniyasha himself is sort of dancing away, his feelings amongst this crowd, and it's a bit less abstract, but it's just as chaotic, and it's very very fluid.
Mhm.
It's very impressive, um, and it's definitely like the highlights so far for the audio visuals. Um, and then there's another example of that in the opening, as well, of that kind of style showing up. Um, I'd have to look up again who did those cuts. 'Cause I remember I had a tweet that showed them, but I've lost it now. But yeah, very impressive stuff. I kind of hope that kind of thing shows up a bit more as the series goes on. Maybe for like important moments or whatever. But it's good. It's very impressive stuff.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the stuff you're saying almost kind of harkens me back to the time where you reviewed Heike Monogatari as well. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of similar. It kind of reminded me of something almost like and obviously uh it's a bit more chaotic and abstract, like I said, but it's very reminiscent of something like The Tale of Princess Kaguya, right, from Studio Ghibli, um,
Mm,
which is a visual masterpiece in its own. Um,
right.
so, but yeah, good shit for sure. Um,
Mhm.
Outside of that, the pretty even like the standard animation, it's very consistent. The colors are very nice. I really like
Mhm.
the um Oniyasha himself is a very sort of expressive character. He's got kind of um like sort of noticeably, I guess, different um proportions to other characters. Like he's got a much rounder head. He's got much more expressive eyes, much bigger eyes, and they play with that quite a bit. He has in some of the more comedic moments, he'll his head will become even rounder. He'll get puffy lips. He'll be much simpler. But it's all still very fluid. Um, and obviously, his outfit as well is very um detailed, very flowy. It's pretty
Mhm.
reminiscent visually of something like Elusive Samurai, which is also airing this season. Um,
Yes.
and it's pretty comparable, I'd say, animation wise. Um, but yeah, very impressive stuff for sure. And then
Okay.
um, audio wise, the music is about what you'd expect, right, from one of these sort of ancient Japan kind of historical um, pieces. A lot of flutes, a lot of drums, especially when they're doing the performance. It's very drums and chanting, stuff like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pretty standard stuff.
So it's like
Um,
for World is Dancing, essentially like the dancing scenes, uh, especially when it's like when the chips are down, when it's like in front of the shogun and stuff like that. That's sort of their battle scene, right? It's like that's when the war drums and not war
yeah,
drums, but it's
yeah,
like when that's when the heavy drumming and stuff like that come in, right? I'm
yeah.
guessing.
Um, Pretty much, yeah. It's funny too because the scene uh in the episode before um the actual performance, right, where they're kind of like announcing the casting for who's going to be performing like what role and like who's dancing which part and stuff like that. It's basically presented uh like a kind of like pre-war planning uh like a
Okay, okay,
meeting kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
pretty good. It's pretty good
Isn't this
kind
the
of bit.
same period as the other samurai series? That's weird, isn't it?
Um I think this
Mm,
one's
I don't.
a bit
s-
before, um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if I
But
remember
this,
right.
they're both 1300s, are they not?
I don't remember
I don't
which.
think I forget if Nigiwaka is 13 or 1300.
Yeah, I
Mm.
don't remember. But yeah.
Set
Um,
between the late Kamakura and early Muromachi, so that is the same era. Wow, that's
well,
lame.
but yeah. Um,
Did you know Kenshin takes place in the 1800s, almost 1900s? Kenshin could beat
well,
them in a fight.
but yeah. The OPED. I guess I'll get to the OP is Shusho by Macaroni and Pitsu. Um, I like the track quite a bit. It's a bit of a banger. Um, the OP itself is really, really impressive. I really like the way it kind of um, it very much flows with the track itself, and
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to describe, but the OP, the way it's boarded and the way it kind of interacts with the song, it almost feels like the OP, which OPs are very short. Um, but the OP itself feels like it's kind of broken up into like acts, um, which is very cool. Um, it's a very impressive OP. It's got a lot of different styles that are thrown into it. Um, some very kind of uh, rough drawn kind of like sketchbook moments, some more ink painting stuff. It plays with colors a lot. Um, and, it's got a lot of experimental stuff with some more, I guess, standard shots that you would see in an anime OP. And yeah, it's just really impressive overall. I would say it's a very strong contender for me, at least, for OP of the year. Um, and I mean, we've had a lot of really good OPs this year. I think this year's been pretty good for OPs. Um, but yeah, I like this one a lot. The ED is Namo Nai Hana uh, by Hawk Rock B. Um, it's pretty generic. I'll say it's not quite as impressive as the OP. It's about what you'd expect. A lot of kind of um more
Characters
colorful.
walking through the background.
Yeah, walking around, staring out into the distance,
Yeah, yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, right? The
Mhm.
track is nice, but it's about what you expect from an ED. It's a more instrumental kind of, soft rock kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
it's nice, but it's pretty generic, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I mean, overall, audio visuals are really impressive. Obviously, Cygames pictures, um, when they come out swinging, they come out swinging, right? They definitely they do not uh, fail to impress, right? They're
They've been
definitely
very
one of the
consistent in their recent streaks. Yeah.
yeah, definitely one of the big up and comers, and I mean, it's not like they're lacking money, right? So, um,
Mhm.
yeah, very very excited to see what they can pull off with something like Kagurabachi. Um, but yeah, uh, as for this series, I mean, again, very impressive. I really hope to see more of the kind of chaotic, kind of frenetic um, depictions of dancing that they've done in this. Um, and even some of the slower paced stuff is pretty impressive too. I will say, um, the one thing that I think might be a hurdle to this series is kind of again calling back to like my one bigger gripe with this is that like there isn't really any dance trivia to this, and
Yeah, yeah. What
um
we talked about before.
yeah, like no theater is a very slow uh it's not a very call me uncultured, right? But it's not a very, I guess, easily digestible kind of uh form of entertainment, I guess, because when I watch something like a no performance, um, it's kind of like again, maybe I'm uncultured, but it's kind of like what is the entertainment value here? You know what I mean? Um,
Hmm.
and obviously, you know, when you're there at like an actual performance, a lot of it is uh, the technicality of it and the story that they're telling, right? Um, but in this series, it doesn't really get into either of those, right? It kind of just shows the dance, and it kind of has the characters being like, "Oh my god, he's so good at this," and for this kind of dance, I feel like the average viewer, and again, maybe I'm just stupid and uncultured, but for me, watching a guy sort of fold his sleeves over his arms like 3 times as he slowly moves around and stomps his foot and twiddles the fan, I'm not really looking at that and being like, holy shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is, so it's like for the standard way to do it, right? And I say standard because this is how they kind of sell those series. It would be like the rest of like the non like dancing scenes would essentially all be very heavily like coming of age, and then the dancing scenes would specifically be made to sell the sakugs, right? It would be like you would have like sparks all over the place. It would be like UFO table. It would be like Kyoani Hyoka, like levels of like sparkling. Like that's sort of how a standard um a project team, right, would sell this sort of series, right? But I'm not sure. I don't think that's necessarily what World is Dancing is doing.
Yeah. I mean, it does it a little bit. Like, so when there's
Mhm.
the performance for the Shogun and Oniyasha's father gets on stage, right? And he's got the mask on and, um, he's got his arms stretched out wide. They sort of, um, they sort of overlay like the rising sun behind him, right? And it's like a sort of depiction of, the, I guess, grandiosity of the sort of size that he's portraying himself as with his clothing and his movements and his kind of presence on stage, and that translates well, I think. But the sort of like the motions before that, it, like to somebody that's not exactly well versed in the art form, like I know about no theater, but I don't really uh I don't really get the intricacies of it, right? Um, so for me to watch like the movements before that moment, it kind of just looks like a guy stomping his feet on stage. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
and
and
for the
again, unless it
characters,
becomes like a pure spectacle, it's like a very it becomes harder to sell.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I would say that like that is kind of this series' biggest drawback. Um, and I think it will be um probably the hardest like sell for the average viewer to kind of like um just be like, yeah, sit down and watch this, and
Mhm.
there's going to be a point where you might be watching this series and you're kind of just like, I don't really get like what these characters are reacting to, you know what I mean? um
Yeah.
So, that is an aspect um, of this series, but I think overall, it's pretty good. I like the characters. Um, I like the way that this is sort of using um, kind of art and expression as a form of sort of coming of age and character introspection. I think it's done well. The main character himself, um, he's young and he's selfish and he's brash, but he's not stupid, right? He's not
Mhm.
he's not stubborn, he's not obstinate, and I think that uh, definitely helps the viewing experience, right? Because
Mhm.
you know nobody likes a young character when it's like, oh, it's a coming of age story, and it's like, well, yeah, it's a coming of age story, but it doesn't necessarily make it more enjoyable to watch, like a young character kind of make the same mistakes over and over and over again, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like at some point you got to learn, right? Um,
At some point, also it starts becoming a shtick and less like an evolving like story.
yeah,
Like it becomes
yeah,
like one of those like Komi-san kind of level of like, oh, he did the thing. Like,
yeah. It's like, you know, um, it's one thing to sort of like present a character as a crybaby and then have them, go through a coming of age and have them kind of overcome that. And then it's another thing to be like, oh, he's a crybaby. It's a coming of age story. By the way, every single time he's presented with a difficult issue or challenge or something doesn't go his way, he reverts back into that, crybaby state because that's just how he is, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I think this series does a pretty good job of, uh, avoiding kind of repetition in sort of the mistakes that the character is making. Um, and I like it. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Um, yeah, it's pretty solid.
But Near, is it the best historical drama? Japanese historical drama?
No, probably not.
What's the best one?
The best one, definitely Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, what would you rate it out of a 10? Because I know again, it's like you did point out some flaws to it, but overall it seems a very solid series. Probably potentially anime of the season contender in a world where um we don't
In a world where
necessarily
Ghost in
have
the Shell
Ghost in
isn't
the
airing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, so this is sitting at a 7.47 on Mall, which is pretty good.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, people are enjoying it, obviously. I would probably rate it pretty similarly. I think right now for me, it's sitting at a 7.5. I think as it goes on, I can see this rising probably to an 8, maybe an 8.5, depending on how it fully fleshes out. Um,
What's the score at right
and
now?
uh, on Mall, it's at a 7.47.
It hasn't beaten my favorite historical drama yet.
Wow.
Can you guess what it is?
Kenshin,
Hell yeah, dude.
yeah,
8.27.
wow. Um, but yeah, I think it's pretty solid. I think it's a pretty easy recommendation. Um, just with like that minor caveat, right? Where it's like this one aspect of the series might be a bit hard to kind of it's like a hump that you have to get over, I think. Depending on the person, right? Maybe some people out there really fuck with no theater. Me personally, I'm not one of those people.
You know who does,
So,
Yeah.
Near?
cool.
Radin.
Wow.
She's
True.
cool. Also, there
Um,
was that one Inuyasha episode about no masks.
True. It's almost
The
like
one
they're
that
kind of
eats people.
really culturally important to Japan.
I
But
guess, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty good. I think again, glad to see that it turned out pretty solid, although obviously it had a little bit of a how do I say this? Like the initial kind of premise and like package is a little bit of a harder sell, even though it is based off it not I don't want to say based off of, but it's like it's a riff off of a true story, like a real life historical figure, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think Cygames probably did make a good run for it. Good run for trying to kind of depict this in a way that would be um at least somewhat palatable to its audience. And obviously it Cygames having a really great streak in terms of like the audio visuals definitely helps it. But
Wasn't the other series also based on a historical figure too?
Which one?
which one?
The Blue
Nigiwaka?
Samurai? Yeah.
Um,
Nigiwaka
I think very loosely.
So Nigiwaka has historical context. It's like obviously set within a realistic era, right? But think I don't think the actual like person. I guess like yeah, I don't think I don't think the actual like protagonist and stuff like that was like
I think the main like
really
villain,
based off a
um,
specific person. Yeah, yeah,
is the main like historical. Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah,
Are
yeah.
you telling me all those Oda Nobunaga animes are not based on the real person?
yeah. Well, I think that's a little
No,
bit
he
of an
did all
apples
that.
and oranges
He did all that.
comparison.
Well,
Yeah,
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 dude.
yeah, yeah.
I believe that.
But yeah, yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, Nier, for helping to cover World is Dancing. Definitely a little bit of a harder on nut to crack and kind of like review through than some of the other series, but I'm glad that we had you on deck to help cover it. For those of you who are interested, again, World is Dancing. Um, manga original, actually, adapted into anime by Cypig, also known as Cygames Pictures. They've been on a hot streak for quite a while. Picked up some good source material here, and if you are interested in this sort of more historical fiction, again based off an actual figure, it's not just like, oh, these people dancing. It's like it's actually based off the anime and kind of the evolution of what will become no theater. Please do check this out.